What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by Ping Pong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Crossover Commerce. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is my corner of the internet, where I bring the best and brightest in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Sound really ominous how I said that today. So not to scare anyone away, but this is a great place to learn from lots of great insight from people and experts in the Amazon e-commerce space, people who have sold, people who are in the service industry, people who are helping Amazon sellers and e-commerce businesses grow and scale their businesses. Without this podcast, I just want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Ping Pong Payments, presented by Crossover Commerce presented by Ping Pong Payments. Ping Pong Payments is helping sellers grow as well, scaling their businesses, whether it be sending or receiving money worldwide, helping over 1 million customers worldwide, internationally, helping them save more money, putting it back to their bottom line, whether it be sending or receiving funds, paying out their suppliers, manufacturers, your VAs, your business entities, however that looks. Make it more simple and safe and secure with Ping Pong Payments. You can go to all of our past episodes, all past 200, and I'm going to look at the number 235 episodes on our website. That's usa.pingpongx.com/podcast. So you can check those out, all the past transcripts, all the past key takeaways, resources that we've mentioned in every episode. So if you listen to those and you don't know what we were talking about, go to those pages to make sure you get pointed in the right direction. All information about our past speakers that have come onto the show and information that we've published as well. You can also follow us live if you're watching or listening to this right now. You can give us a note below in the comment section, whether it be on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter. We get to see all those fun, cool things that you guys did to send in just a simple hi or hello, or let us know where you're listening from, or you can just ask us a question. So myself or a guest or guests, I have multiple guests on today. You can always ask them questions or a clarification about something they might say, and be more than happy to interact through that. If you catch us on a different time or on a different podcast, or just listening to after the fact, we've had actually a good example of, I had a guest on here 15 months later. They had a client come from it, but simply just because they wanted to ask a question. They found us on YouTube and they connected with our guest. So it happens. It might not be today, but if you have a question here in 2023 or 24 or 25, wherever you find this episode, make sure that you reach out to the respectful people. Just look in the comment section below and you'll be able to find the right ways to do that. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring back on friends of the show. You might have heard that term before if you listen to the podcast. Friends of the show are people who typically have made it through an episode or two with me. And they come back on and they say yes multiple times. So I haven't scared them away, but they're welcome back anytime to bring valuable information for you, the listener, so that they can help grow your business and help things that they've seen and portray that to the public. So without further ado, bring back friends of the show, Chris McCabe and Leah McHugh of ecommerceChris. Let me go and pop up both. And we're live. Okay, guys, welcome back to Crossover Commerce.
I think this is my first time, actually, but it is not Chris's.
Leah, you're still a friend of the show because Chris came on, so you're by association, you're
friends of mine.
I've met you in person, therefore, friend of the show.
Yes.
Both of you, welcome coming on.
And co-creators of the Seller Velocity Conference.
That's right. I want to say co-creators of
ecommerceChris.
ecommerceChris. So Chris is the name, but Leah, you helped co-found ecommerceChris, right? Or you joined early on?
I joined early on. I like to say, and it upsets Chris every time I say it, that I put the e-commerce in ecommerceChris.
I was gonna say you're the e-commerce part of the Chris.
I put the Amazon in ecommerceChris, but the breadth of my knowledge in e-commerce, a lot of it came from getting to know Leah's background. She was working at a Boston-based startup. She was kind of a brand builder way long ago and continues to be. And that's one reason why, in all seriousness, that's one reason why this year's conference is so focused on revenue expansion and brand building, is way back when the seeds of it, when you say, Leah, kind of come from your experiences 10 years ago, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a weird
Yeah.
thing in a new industry where you're 36 and are an industry veteran somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my experience was more e-commerce rather than Amazon specific before I started working with Chris. Like we worked with Amazon, but it was a sales channel, not the entire business.
Right.
Yeah, I can associate with that because
yeah.
I was in charge of affiliate marketing and driving through growth marketing through our direct to consumer channels. So other people
Right.
did Amazon. I just was very aware of it, but I helped grow. Yeah, 7 figures. I'm sure you were crushing it too. So that's very cool.
And when I worked at Amazon, looking at seller accounts, like when I was investigating accounts or warning people, looking at their listings, I didn't really think about, oh, this is a reseller. Oh, this is a private label brand. Or how will the action I'm taking impact this brand versus another kind of a seller? Like we didn't really think about that. We thought of the world in terms of seller account, seller account, seller account. How much are they selling? Not so much what are they selling.
Interesting. So you
So
guys were all profit focused and number focused instead of on the actual item?
I think we were just subjective and biased in terms of thinking like, well, Amazon is where people sell stuff. I mean, obviously, people sell on their own website, but even back a few years ago, we knew that whatever they were selling on Amazon was way, way more than what they were selling on their website. So we kind of like started forgetting about other e-commerce channels, like not consciously, but it just fell farther and farther back to the point where we started looking at them as Amazon businesses. And we started Seller Velocity referring to that as Amazon brand conference. But I mean, it's a brand conference because we're talking about e-commerce generally, not just, that's sort of the irony of ecommerceChris. Like I started it, of course, thinking, well, I have an Amazon background and that's all it says on LinkedIn, but I'll learn more about what sellers are selling on eBay and Walmart and all these other channels, their own websites. But everyone on LinkedIn, I mean, this is back before Leah helped me, make the first website. And back then I didn't have a website. I only had a LinkedIn presence, but everyone asked me about Amazon and no one ever asked me about eBay or Walmart or any other channels. So it's just, we've come kind of full circle now with what we're doing on the conference, talking about those other channels.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, a lot of it, I think, like you said, it's kind of full circle. And we titled today's episode for everyone who's like on their edge of their seat right now, listening. Like, what are they going to talk about today? We're just talking about scaling your business on Amazon long-term strategies, and this is something where a lot of people don't necessarily have to think about that. They think of, oh, I want to think about short term, like what am I selling this month or next month or in the year? That's not really technically long term. Long term would be like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've seen sellers that have been on 10 plus years, and it doesn't seem like they've been on that long. But scaling your business so that's a long term brand focus instead of I'm a widget seller. I just buy and sell. You're a commodities trader almost like in capacity, but you're reselling on Amazon. So why is this topic super important and relevant here in 2022? Like, why is it now full circle, Chris and Leah?
I think you really need to start looking at the longer term strategies now as opposed to a few years ago, because the industry itself is changing. It's starting to consolidate. So all of a sudden these smaller sellers are now competing even more against billion-dollar companies. So if you're just competing on price or if you're competing on ad spend, chances are you're going to get outbid pretty quickly. Whereas if you start focusing more on your brand strategies and how your off Amazon strategies also affect your Amazon strategies, you're setting yourself up way better for long-term growth and potential rather than just hopping on trends and hoping it pays off in the short or long term. I mean, also because of what we do for a living every day, we see the trouble that short-term strategies get people into. And if you're looking at it,
well, reviews were the big thing, right? Product review manipulation, sales rank manipulation, which the nature of Amazon's enforcement's changed, but not to interrupt what you were saying, but.
No, you're fine. Yeah. I think it's just, the short-term ones are the ones that tend to get people into trouble because they tend to be the oh, I found this loophole that Amazon isn't currently enforcing or nobody else knows about. Generally speaking, if you find a loophole, you are not the only person that knows about it. And also eventually, if it's something that Amazon doesn't want to seeing, it will cost you in some way, whether it's the listing or your account, depending on what it is that you're doing.
Also, when everyone's doing it, they notice it faster. They decide they huddle up and decide we need to create an enforcement action around this. And that's where these crackdowns come from.
Right.
People love to say, like, why are they cracking down now? Why are they, this is all of a sudden, this is a lightning strike. Well, it's probably building up in the background. It's just, like pressure building up, and they have to do something about it eventually. So when it reaches a fever pitch, then they jump in and they start suspending listings. I mean, another example, not reviews abuse related, would be certain listing optimization trends. We have some brands approaching us saying, well, our competitors are all doing this. And yeah, technically it's a loophole, or technically it's a policy violation, but everyone's doing it, or our competition's doing it, or we've heard about this from a marketing company that does listing optimization. And it's all short-lived stuff. And most of the brands we work with, I mean, some of our ongoing monthly clients we've been with, I don't know how many years. I mean, those are established brands. Maybe they weren't 100% established when they latched on with us, but they're not in it for a short-term score, a short-term play. And that's why maybe some brands who are focused just on exit strategy are missing, the forest through the trees a little bit. They're like, hey, I got to do a quick kind of smash and grab and build this up really quickly and sell it really quickly. And maybe I'll do that again. We've heard from some people who want to just repeat, rinse, cycle, repeat through that. So
I have a question. You brought up the nature of cyclical nature. Is it something that people will, like you said, try to do review manipulation, or there's some of the bad stuff that you think to rank? You saw it like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and then all of a sudden it comes back. Like, it's almost like trendy stuff. Like, it will go away, then it'll come back. Is that pretty prominent in the space that you guys have worked with, and you see more pop up than others, or what are?
Yeah, so it'll be cyclical in sellers' behavior, but it's also cyclical in Amazon's behavior. So a lot of times we'll see, like, we'll have weeks where every single case that comes in is the same kind of case. Amazon just does a purge and suspends a whole bunch of accounts for the same reason. And then we won't see any more suspensions for that reason for like months until they do yet another purge, particularly listing compliance for whatever, not like product compliance, but particularly listing policies. For whatever reason, they'll go like on a massive purge and then not do it again for months. And so I think also sellers don't take it as seriously because they're like, well, I've been doing this for years and it's never affected me. It's just sort of, luck of the draw, whether they get you in the purge.
And
go ahead, Chris.
Well, no, just a quick point. I can shed some background on how the internal ops would, very simply put, we would have meetings, right? Once a week, maybe more often than that. But management would say, what are you seeing a lot of? Very basic, throw it out there stuff. And a bunch of us would say, well, we're seeing a lot of reports for this, or we're seeing a lot of violations for blank. And then that would sort of start the idea in terms of, well, we need to do something about that. It would either come organically from us just talking about what we were seeing every day in terms of people breaking policies, policy violations that were reported from competitors. Less common those days than it is now, or it would come from on high, right? Some VP would see an escalation, or somebody senior VP would see something, or Jeff himself would see something and say, I saw a complaint about blank, or there's been a lot of emails.
Negative press. Negative press.
Well, yeah. So
triggers.
Yeah, it could come from an email, back in the day, sending the Jeff at Amazon. It could come from his inbox. It could come from press. And PR people went to management and said, what should we say about blank? Then they would go to people like my boss or my boss's boss and say, we need to do something about this. And when it comes from on high, all of a sudden there's the scramble and everyone starts putting into place, meetings with engineers. We got to create some algorithmic solutions to this to capture the right seller accounts, the right listings, the right type of brands, and then investigate them, do the manual side. Once we've done the automation, the sort of scrape of who's doing this stuff, then it's the rest of us in seller performance going through, looking at them one by one. And that's why all of a sudden you get all these either automated messages that are followed up by appeals and manual reviews, or manual actions where they're suspending listings or suspending accounts. That's kind of where you hear from sellers a lot of this, like, where did this come from? How does this start? That kind of gives a little window into it.
Is it true? Obviously, I think a lot of people try to play ignorant. Like, Amazon doesn't know what's going on. Is that just a silly philosophy? Like, of course they do. It's the platform. Like, for example, like review manipulation. You can clearly see where a review comes from. You can go on the back end where the IP address is. is there a trend? Like what are, what is the rate of review, if it spikes or not? You can look at those analytics, and people's jobs alone is to review trends on that, to either A, if it's doing really well and it's applicable to something happening in society, push that product more, or on the back end, it could be a negative thing. So is it silly to think that Amazon doesn't know what's going on with all these different manipulations, quote unquote, whether how big or how small?
They're aware.
I think they're aware. It's just scaling it is not always painless. So that's why you'll often see a lot of people get falsely flagged. They'll get caught up in the purge, and while they're still working out how they can do it automated. More and more of the stuff we're seeing is through algorithms and automation, which only then gets reviewed by a real person once you submit an appeal saying, hey, this is incorrect, or hey, sorry, depending on what the case may be. Yeah.
Has there ever been like our bad, hey, we caused you this much money, like retribution almost? Like Amazon would never do that, correct? In the capacity of, hey, we wrongfully suspended you for a week or so. Here's for your time and for your like they can't do that, right? It's just,
I mean, there's been some people have told us in very infrequent instances they've gone to Amazon and said, we know we're not able to sue for damages here, but something you did cost us. And usually that's going straight to Amazon legal, right? I think with attorneys who come back with, you guys, we've caught you dead to rights screwing something up that hurt our client, and they experience financial duress. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's been sorted maybe in the arbitration process.
Yeah, I think it's more of an arbitration thing.
Yeah,
Amazon doesn't just offer the
arbitration hearings sometimes to sweep
prime
it
for a
under
year,
the
guys.
rug. Well,
yeah,
just
go away
to settle something. It's not uncommon in other court cases as well, right? It's like, well, we could hem and haw over this for months, but maybe as a settlement offer, since there's so much evidence and there's an abundance of information showing that there was an error on Amazon's side that cost this business something, we'll offer you blank. But I think that's mostly been through arbitration. Yeah.
Gotcha. Obviously, you guys deal with a lot of like impactful things, whether it be outside the seller's circumstance, but it typically comes down from Amazon, how they interpret TOS, and like you said, either be removal or whatnot. But you also have like your pulse on kind of what Amazon's announcements are. I think Jassy actually just had his first State of the Union. State of the Union.
I haven't read it yet. State of the Amazon.
But it was really powerful yesterday. And actually, a friend of the show, one of a podcast, Lisa, actually reached out and she had a question. This is something that was really buzzy yesterday. I didn't really know what for and how much of an impact it was. If it's a lot, is a little, but a lot of people were talking about it. I know this is not necessarily under your guys' umbrella of impact, but as impactful as e-commerce and strategy is concerned, Amazon charging, it was a 5% increase, I believe, for fuel inflation surcharge on FBA fulfillment fees.
Right.
How is that going to impact, do you think, positively or negatively? Maybe on something that you guys effectively try to tell people don't do that, because it's going to, if you're taking from one hand, do you have to like make it up in another area, and you might have to turn to the dark side to do that? I don't know. Hopefully not. Is this going to have a major impact for people, do you think?
I think the biggest impact will be on how people are utilizing FBA. I think last year they tried to reduce the load on their FBA warehouses by restricting how much inventory people could send in, and that didn't necessarily work out so well. I think Amazon is getting a lot more friendly towards merchant fulfilled as they're struggling to keep up with their own fulfillment. So I think we'll see a lot of people, especially with lower cost items where maybe it's just not worth the additional FBA fees, or fragile items or hazmat items, things that are harder to already send into FBA. I think maybe those additional fees will have more people looking for third-party warehouses or fulfilling it themselves. In terms of black hat strategies, I mean, honestly, like most of the black hat strategies I see aren't necessarily improving
working.
Well, like most of them aren't to improve profit margins. They're just they're designed to improve overall sales. Yeah. So you know, if your margins are -5 and you improve sales, it's not really gonna help
Right.
you
It's still
so much.
-5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
I
of them,
always tell people you have to do math from the
Yeah.
get-go. Math doesn't change if you don't change the inputs or the the
Right.
factors in it. So Chris, sorry,
No,
you were gonna say something.
there's always going to be people looking for a quick score. We don't get exposed to it. Sometimes we hear chatter and rumors about it. Occasionally somebody comes through the site or emails us saying, hey, what about blank? But you know, that's just the usual chase where Amazon's trying to reduce that kind of activity, but they usually react to it, not proactively. They hear about it, they see people doing it. We just don't get exposed to a lot of the, you know, well, I'm going to dip into the dark side and then slide back over onto the, we don't get into the whole, oh, but this is great gray hat. I mean, I threw that conversation away a long time ago because we think that Amazon views this in black and white terms. They interpret their own policies and guidelines in black and white terms. So Leah and I interpret everything in black and white terms too, unless we really see that the policy's unclear and that it's never been clarified by Amazon. But typically sellers asking us about these tricks and shortcuts are simply interpreting things in a very favorable way to what they want to do. And we don't see it as unclear. We see it as, you know, stark and direct, but they, for the purposes of what they're trying to do to boost sales or whatever, see it in a very favorable light to the dark side. So
Who are since I worked in SaaS, I've heard that I had to use the phrase gray a lot, which is not a good thing, a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's like interpretation. Do you guys see the culprits more software or product, or do you see it more service oriented individuals or companies that get those in trouble on a third party sense?
I think we're seeing less in terms of software since Amazon tightened up their API rules.
Right.
But I mean, certainly from all fronts. I think one major change in the last few years has been sellers reporting other sellers for bad behavior. I think that has definitely improved. You know, how much of the bad behavior we're seeing, because anybody can buy your product and that person could be your competitor who wants to shut you down for breaking the rules. But I mean, yeah, it's not really, certainly we see a lot of bad things being taught to sellers. You know, the going back to the hacks thing, it's,
well, the inserts is a good example, right?
Well, that's another thing that kind of went away for a while and came back because everybody forgot about how a bunch of people got suspended for that.
Well, and there was an interesting dynamic with the packaging inserts, right? Because some people decided, I don't want to get suspended. It's too risky. I'm going to pull out my inserts or make them more compliant. And whether they pulled them all out immediately or sold through their remaining inventory and then changed them probably varied. But they got to the point where suspensions for that sort of thing was so common, they pulled their own out, and then they could start accusing other people of doing it when they did test buys from their competitors. If you go back a few years before that, everyone was like, well, if I accuse you, you might look at my inserts and accuse me, then we both get shut down. So if you tidied up your little corner, then you were in a better position to accuse others without being accused yourself. And that was a sort of flywheel effect of, oh, now competitors are really getting into reporting each other, but only if their own house was in order. Of course, Leah and I saw some cases where people were accusing competitors, but they didn't have their own house in order, and they got accused themselves and maybe suspended themselves. So you got to be careful with that.
I think as recent as maybe Christmas, I saw some I was really sure that were against TOS of anytime a review or rating or a star, any indication like an icon or anything like that, I see it as like a, in my mind, red flag. I mean, I go on their website and I go through their profile and I'm like, that makes sense. Like you haven't been around a long time or something like that, where, you know, there's compensation, but I've seen creativity in terms of like, obviously specifically inserts. I've talked about a couple episodes of, hey, you know, film your unboxing experience. Like, you know, we're a small business, is film it and post with a hashtag. And if you get to a certain amount, you know, we'll send you a new product or one of our upcoming products or even a gift card to our store or something like that, which I obviously think is really cool in terms of like social engagement too. So I think people's creativity kind of sucks sometimes, and they're just like, like make us do better and do all the work for us instead of get creative with it and in a good way. I think my
favorite insert story was from last year. It was a news story about somebody who works for the FTC ordered something from Amazon and reported their non-compliant inserts to Amazon and also to the FTC. Like, you just have to remember, anybody can buy your product,
and
including
also,
regulators.
Well, it's not just regulators. I know people who work at Amazon who have reported stuff that they bought.
Shop too.
Yeah, or even since I'm in Seattle a lot, traveling there on business, friends of Amazonians. So they will buy. They're friends because they happen to live in Seattle and happen to have friends who work at Amazon. It's not even that they have friends who work on the enforcement side of the business, but they might. They might have friends who worked on my former teams. But
a guy who knows a guy or something.
Yeah, no, it's not even. Yeah, it's multiple degrees removed. But because they show somebody at Amazon and somebody at Amazon says, "Oh, they shouldn't be doing that," and they report it, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It could come from an employee, a regulator, a buyer, a seller. If it's a valid complaint, if they look at that insert, for example, and they see something that breaks the rules, they can justify taking action against that seller. And that's why it's such a high risk behavior. We know it's a mixture of people who are gun shy about marketing this way and people who are over aggressive about it. So I understand why they kind of like to say gray is something in between there. But whoever you are, have somebody who understands compliance review these things before you start putting them in all your packaging, because it's very expensive to have to pull those all out. Amazon just sends you a warning. And sometimes in the warning itself, they embed added text that says, you need to get these out of there to get this ASIN reinstated.
Be very clear. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to take it back once you start to push it out, whether it be expensive or obviously shutting down listing or pulling your product in general. I know we talked about, I mean, it's not a negative space to be in. It's just, hey, these are ways that people try to build their business. What are the ones that you guys see? I'm going to spin it on the head before we talk about the conference. Positive long-term strategies of successful businesses on Amazon. What are those like key core 3 that you're consistently doing that are going to be successful? Hands down, doesn't matter who it is, what products you sell, these are going to always be tried and true.
Well, so we unfortunately don't get to work a lot on the positive side
on
of
the
things.
Revenue. Yeah.
Shoot.
But that's why we created it's funny. I mean, that's why we created the conference. There are things that we don't offer. We're not a full service agency. We're not marketing experts, but what do we like to do? Introduce Amazon brands to experts we know and trust, like the ones we have as speakers at Seller Velocity. I mean, that's kind of where the conference came from, right, Leah?
Yeah. I mean, we do certainly work with successful brands who just kind of keep us there to keep everything working right and protect them from maybe some competitors who don't do as well as them. And I think, most of the ones that we work with who are very successful all kind of do similar things. They're focused more on branding rather than just Amazon stats and playing the Amazon game. They're not just looking at Amazon as their only platform. They're looking at it as a way of being where their customers are. So Amazon is one of those places, but it's not their entire strategy. I think our best clients are the ones that you see in their own websites, and you see influencers talking about them on social media, and you see them in stores. Like, they do extremely well on Amazon.
They do everything.
Because not like, they do good stuff on Amazon too, but all of this external thing, all of the external branding and all of the external channels also help drive their Amazon business as well. And they're not reliant on Amazon to keep their business going.
They can't be, because that's the all eggs in one basket. Right. And that's kind of gets back to the question. I think it was Lisa who asked the question about the 5% surcharge.
5% surcharge.
Well, if Amazon knows there's a certain percentage of people that they're going to jack up the fees on that are all Amazon, which somewhere they've got some data that reflects that, then they feel emboldened to take these measures. I think there's some other stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, they're also buying fleets and fleets of airplanes. I mean, they have to start making up. It's not just about fuel surcharges. They have to start making up for some of the costs. They're a big player in shipping and transpo now. And I think they're up to, they went from 70 to 120 planes kind of overnight. Now I heard they're up to like 150, 160, 170 planes. Well, what does that mean? That means they're trying to master, they're doing 1 day prime, just to get back to that question for a second, where does this stuff come from? They want to master last mile delivery, and they want to compete with FedEx and UPS. I did a video interview with CNBC on this last summer. I mean, why is this such a big, everyone sees what Amazon's trying to do. They're trying to master not just delivering orders to people. They're trying to become players in shipping.
Let me pick. I'm going to go ahead and on a little rant here about FedEx and UPS for a second.
Let's talk about shipping for a while.
Let's talk about shipping. Yeah, I was going to say this has nothing to do with what any of us are experts in right now, but let's complain about
Amazon Air,
what
baby.
we do best. So I was away on I was gone last week, as you guys know. I was not in my home, and packages are coming and going because I have a problem buying stuff. Let's just be true. No, I actually it was something. I think it was this sweatshirt I got from HQ. They sent it. They didn't tell me when it was going to come. So I blame my company for support. No, just kidding, ping pong. First and foremost, packages arrive when I'm not going to be here. Coming UPS, or let's say it was coming UPS. UPS has a strategy. If you are not there, you have to pay $10 for it to just not be delivered to your home.
Wait,
or not
what?
just to hold. UPS makes
to
you
have
pay
it hold, to
I didn't know
hold
they
it,
charged for that
a
now.
flat $10. It could be
Wow.
it could be costing less than $10 if it's coming UPS. It's
Wow.
$10 per package that they have to hold. Then we'll deliver after a set amount of time. It could be as long as you want, but per package that you are supposed to get via them, it's $10. I'm pretty positive that Amazon can reroute to a locker in no time, clearly, and not cost a thing. So I think it's to the point, ending my rant, I think it's just the convenience factor and the cost factor of, well, if that customer who's always right by everyone's standards, if you're going to make them pay an extra $10 to not get their package or for convenience reasons, you're going to lose that customer, I think, long term, because you're just nickel and diming people. But $10 is a lot just to hold and not get your package for a day or two, which I paid because I don't want a package sitting on my front door. And
of course.
That's an issue.
And UPS and Amazon are in bed with each other, right? They're partners.
Sure.
In the same way that Walmart and FedEx appear to be, partnering. So it's just kind of like this is a bigger piece in the chessboard of the shipping war that we'll see playing out in various ways in the next 5 years. But
I do think Shopify, their shop app,
it's very good.
They're doing some interesting things there. Yeah. So it's like you're automatically getting notifications. It's automatically tracking. Like they're not getting into the shipping space, but they're still trying to make it a little bit better when you shop with them.
So the shop app, it's literally a shop app. If you haven't downloaded it, I highly suggest, because it's embedded. It can embed Amazon as well as ultimate different things. So I pulled up the app right now, seeing estimated packages, for example, like bespoke.com. I have one coming from tomorrow. Amazon, you can sign in. It can actually procure from shops that you love, and also brands that you like, and it can also automate and suggest products and stuff, which is a whole different marketing game, but really cool to tell you and notify you when to expect packages, because you get a window of 7 to 14 days. Who cares? But I would like to know.
There's a separate podcast we could do just on the shipping wars in the last mile, but
returns.
Oh my God.
People like to say regulators would take issue of Amazon taking over too much of the shipping business in general, and the more planes they add, the more likely they are to compete or eat into competition from FedEx and UPS. But Amazon's kind of shown that they know their way around the regulatory space before. They got through buying Whole Foods pretty easily, pretty well.
Pretty quickly.
They closed on the MGM and all their assets
very quickly.
It's okay. That's where Prosper is now owned by Amazon now, guys. It's a fact. We're all staying at Amazon properties.
At Mandalay Bay. Yeah,
that was weird.
So which brings us to Bend, Oregon, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say natural transition to how do we seclude ourselves away from
Bend is not, all due respect to Las Vegas. Every time we go there for Prosper, we go to Cirque du Soleil, and we don't go to that anywhere else in the United States anyway. Bend is different. Bend is maybe not necessarily a conference town, but it doesn't mean it's not a good place to have a conference. We think it's a great place. There's tons and tons of stuff to do there. Being a Boston native and somebody who lives in the Boston area in the Northeast, I love the fact that there's so many things to do in Bend that I can't do here.
That's a good thing. Yeah, and natural
yeah.
transition. First and foremost, if people don't know what we're talking about, Bend Seller Velocity Conference, linking out below. Obviously, it's. I almost had this timed right. We started the podcast right when it's exactly 14 days until the conference, guys. So we planned this perfectly.
Oh, we did. Wow.
If you look at this timeline in real life,
that is live. Yes.
That is live, and it's kicking down. So it's less than 14 days now. So if you weren't freaking out, it's coming soon.
Time to freak out, everybody. If you don't have a ticket,
yeah. We talked about. I think we talked a little bit about this last conference that you had, Chris. It was in Boston.
Yep.
Was that the first Seller Velocity conference, or was it?
This is our fourth.
This is your fourth.
Yeah. Holy cow! Why did I think? Yeah, I thought this was new for some reason.
We do them in a different city each time.
That's right.
So the first year was New York. Second year was Seattle. Third year Boston.
Right.
Fourth year Bend.
Right. We're in the
major cities and then Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, we're alternating East Coast, West Coast. I mean, in 4 years, that's been the pattern.
So tell me why Bend, Oregon, because you said those major cities. If you don't know where Bend, Oregon is, it's not a direct flight city. Let's just be clear. It's you have to drive, you have to travel there.
There's a lot of direct flights in the Western United States. I'm not taking a direct path there from Boston.
If you're from the East Coast, it's not an option for some of us who live in major cities.
No, I mean, we've got people flying in direct from Salt Lake City, Seattle. You wouldn't drive from Portland. Portland's close enough, but LA, the Bay Area, Colorado has direct flights as far as I know. I think Arizona does as well. The airport's in Redmond. It's not in Bend, but they're kind of like sister cities right next to each other. So it's essentially the same thing.
But cool area. Like I said, it's different. Did you guys settle on them, or did they reach out to you?
They reached out to us. Yeah, we had people attend last year in Boston who are either agencies or brand owners. They're based in Bend or elsewhere in Oregon, but they saw the format in Boston last year. They liked it, the lightning sessions, the breakout sessions, and they encouraged us, given the startup community and the e-commerce presence already in Bend, already in Oregon, they encouraged us to do it there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So obviously in 14 days, I think it's a cool conference because you guys focus on networking one day, and then the next day it's all content all day long. You guys make it worthwhile in that trip out there. So VIP access day one, you guys are doing, just get out and about, but you have options, which is really cool. Options are always fun to have, guys.
Yeah, we wanted to do something exercise or outdoorsy, but then also wanted to offer something for people who didn't want to do physical activity.
Who just want to eat and drink all day.
Right, exactly. So you can do either or both.
Yeah, it's a big outdoors capital for mountain biking, for hiking. People go tubing there in the summer when it's like 100 degrees. It will not be that hot. We picked a good time of year. It won't be too cold, won't be too hot. But for people who are skiers, there's Mount Bachelor 20-minute drive, which we did the other day. It took us maybe 25 minutes to get there. So you can ski for a couple hours and then come back to town and do stuff there. But also, if you are not inclined to partake in physical activity, there are beer gardens, and it's a microbrew capital. And if you're not into beer, you can even drink Pinot Noir that Oregon's known for. So, and on a nice day, the beer gardens, I can tell you, are really cool. They're very spread out, lots of space. And
everybody has open fires outside, like fire pits. It's nice.
Yeah, it's not just our wonderful conference. People do, weddings, other events at some of the microbreweries, and the beer gardens just are a giant patch of earth with benches and places to hang out and the fire pits,
So definitely a change of pace from Vegas or Miami or somewhere where it's a lot of like high energy. This is more like relaxed, and I think that's what's really. I told you guys this in person. I was like, this is my scene. If I were to pick one for sure. So obviously networking day one, a lot of people. This is only for 100 people, right? This is for
the conference day. Correct.
So the VIP day is actually only 50.
Okay, so even less. So why was it important to maybe cap it, or do you? I mean, obviously, I'm not sure if the tickets are still available. I would say try to buy a ticket anyways. Even if it wasn't available and you guys were capped, still try to go. But why 100? Why not like 300 or something a little bit more where you might get more people?
Yeah, the way we format the conference, it just lends itself better to a smaller group. Also, in terms of networking, it's a whole lot easier to network with 100 people than to try to network with 1,000 people. We really wanted to, Chris and I always say that we're trying to make a conference that we've always wanted to go to. So we try to just get the smartest people we know together in a room, and then people who could benefit from that also in the room together, in the hopes that that is going to turn into something great. And, fun fact, last year, Jason Boyce from Avenue 7 Media met 2 of the 3 companies he acquired this year at our conference.
So if you're a company that's going, you will be acquired is basically what you're getting.
Jason Boyce will acquire you, yes.
Possibly by Jason himself. But,
Jason, if you're listening to this,
well,
I got some companies I'm going to send your way.
We also have an investor panel this year. Why do we have these things? Because brands want to grow. Some of them want to grow to be acquired this year, and some of them are considering it for a future year. And we understand exit strategy is part of any conversation about growth, because the more you grow, the more you attract interest. But why do we have an investor panel this year? Well, because we believe, a variety of ways of investing in Amazon businesses. We get approached by all kinds of parties all over the financial services and investment banking communities and investor communities about brands we work with or how we advise brands to grow. Sometimes they don't even realize that our services aren't necessarily geared towards brand, growth or expansion, but then we talk to them about this conference and they get interested in that because they understand that this is where you can have conversations that are not necessarily the same kinds of networking conversations you'd have at a 1,000-person or 2,000-person conference. So we're not, poo-pooing the giant conferences so much. It's just not what we're about with this conference. We think this is a different approach. Right. And there's room for all kinds of approaches to this type of conversation.
Different's good, as we in the Amazon business say. You want to differentiate yourself and stand out.
Yeah.
Keep it unique.
We really nailed down the format last year. Looking at the pictures last year, if you look at any of the breakout sessions, all of the other speakers are sitting in the front row and engaging in that. And that was what we wanted. We wanted, it's not just your speaker shows up, they do their talk, they leave. It's peer-to-peer learning. It's everybody's very engaged, and it just ends up being a really great day for everybody involved.
I zoomed in on this, so sorry. Don't freak out. Your website is still working. I zoomed in, so
okay.
I probably crouched in on it.
I know I keep seeing things and I'm like,
And
don't do it. I zoomed in.
One other compliment to our speakers: we've got high energy people who are good at motivating movement and thought and action, and outspoken. Jason is vocal when he has questions for others. He's also very articulate. But in terms of Janelle Page and Crystal Abiasi,
Ritu, we have really great
Ritu. We have I think we had good energy last year, but we have great energy this year. This is
not Chris McCabe character.
The best year. Yeah. Chris McCabe hanging out in the background. Well, I like
the two Chris's wearing the same suit.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
Chris and I share the same wardrobe.
Amazon taught you guys.
Yeah. Actually, my topic is brighter and more positive than what I normally talk about at other conferences, simply because we're talking about, examining and then buttoning up any weaknesses on your account or your brand for the purpose of growth. So this is the sunniest spin on the topics that
on the dark hole that you guys live in.
Right. The reinstatement strategies and, the things I usually talk about. This year, this is the sunniest topic you'll probably ever hear me talking about. So
well, it's important. I would agree. You know your weaknesses, therefore you can grow your strengths, or your strengths are stronger and your weaknesses. You're only as good as your weakest point. So that's a good point. To spin, like you said, we need to spin on the dark times always. So which is cool.
I will be semi-motivational as a speaker this year, as opposed to don't do that, do this, don't do that.
Don't screw up.
The school teacher stuff is taking a backseat. And you know what? That's not even, the irony is whether we've become associated with account suspensions and getting listings reinstated, when you get your listing back up, it is a happy time, right? It's of course a dark day when it goes down, but if the faster you solve that, the better it is. The less time you spend on a listing reinstatement or a policy warning or an account level issue, the less time you spend on that, the more time you spend on growth. So it is part of that conversation by its nature.
Yeah, in the world you guys live in, it is a time suck, which is the ultimate commodity that none of us can get back. And time is money. I mean, it's very true, especially on Amazon. In 24-hour cycle, if you're not up and running, you are losing money minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. So that's very true. Very important.
And it saps your energy. It's not just the revenue lost from having that ASIN down. There's a number associated with that, but there's also the amount of time you spent on it. So you lost whatever you would have been doing with that time. So there's an opportunity cost there. And then it's like a brain down, and it makes you less motivated to grow and expand, or even maybe launch a new SKU. Maybe you're like down for a month on a suspended listing and you're like, you know what? We're not going to launch this other product this year. We're going to wait till next year because we're spending too much time putting out fires. So it just has that cumulative effect.
Sure. Yeah, it's very important, obviously. Are the panels, I know you guys in the years past, have you had these panels before, or as many, or what's
so the panels are new this year. They're part of the VIP day. So we have 2 panels on the VIP day, an investment panel, and then just what we're calling our VIP panel. So the investment panel is obviously about investment. And then the other panel is just generally about scaling your business. So we've been doing this video series with a lot of people about their top tip for scaling your business. So we thought that would be a great thing to have different people from different parts of the industry talking about what they're doing this year, or what they think people should be doing this year to scale.
Multiple former Amazonians. I mean, Stan Friedlander is moderating one of our panels. He was at Amazon for 10 years. And George Westcott was there too as a category manager. So it's not just me as the ex-Amazon person anymore.
You have Amazon people there now.
Yeah.
They are currently. Yeah.
And,
amazing.
I think conference or not, with all of our content going forward, we're going to make sure that whoever the smartest person is that we know covering a certain area, that's the person we're going to give to you. Whether they're ex-Amazon or not, it tends to be some ex-Amazonians are out there now. And that's just a trend right now.
We have the stable who, they're not even really, they do Amazon, but they're known more for their direct-to-consumer branding. We try to have people from other parts of the industry there as well. So it's not all Amazon, because it shouldn't be all Amazon at this point.
Right. It's important to overlap, because coming from both sides of the industry, as you know, Leah, too, it's important how once they connect, it's kind of your mind opens up in so many different ways. It's very curious to see, like, if you come from direct to consumership on Amazon, you're like, this almost seems like too good to be true. Like just this constant inflow of people, and I don't have to market it and find from zero. This is crazy. And on Amazon on the opposite side, it's like, well, why I have to market more? I have to find people to constant stream to my website. This is more difficult. So it's almost like the two sides, once they converge, it's almost like that aha moment for a lot of people. And that's where they take that step forward of either in different marketplaces, or they grow their business in that capacity, which is really important. I think if you're going to grow, have long-term strategy, which is what we promise to tell people of what's good long-term strategy, going to conferences like this so you can see both sides come together too.
Yeah, and it creates brands that people recognize. There's a difference between a brand that someone might just happen to purchase when they're looking for something on Amazon, and a brand that people are looking for. And I think that direct-to-consumer branding at that top end of the funnel gets that a lot more than many people working on the Amazon side, because you're not dealing with that part of the funnel.
Absolutely. And that's very important. I saw a post on LinkedIn that someone made the ridiculous claim of brands don't exist on Amazon, and you have to have a D2C. That went around pretty quickly. That. Yeah, the basis of it, Chris, was brands don't exist on Amazon. Brands exist on D2C. Brands only off of Amazon.
Okay.
I guarantee no one could name a brand on Amazon, and the Amazon community came to fight. They listed off all these different ones. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, that $1 billion entity called Anchor, or blah 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 bliss, or oh yeah, by the way, this company, Zesty Paws, or who's just acquired for over $500 million. Are you kidding me? So again, we run in the space very, very close to it. I think it does have a branding identity strategy, weakness to it. It's not at the forefront constantly. I couldn't tell you what. If I didn't go to Anchor's website before, I couldn't tell you what their logo was or anything like that. I think people associate brand with logo. It's a visual cue instead of a product cue. you got me off on my my soapbox here, guys. So, anyways, no one's here to listen to that. Any other things like what's important to know if they want to? Obviously, they have less than 2 weeks to decide to go.
Right.
Tickets are still available. A few left, like very little
Yeah,
left.
the VIP tickets are getting close to sell, because you don't have to attend both days. So some people are just attending the conference day. We have a couple of people who are just attending the VIP day.
Okay.
So there's like a couple of VIP ones left, but there's still a few conference passes left. So
Cool.
Yeah, definitely join us. It's going to be a great couple of days, and we're actually there the whole weekend. So if you guys want to go skiing,
Go early.
and you get a VIP. You get a ski pass with a VIP ticket purchase, so we can all go on a little Amazon ski trip. Although I need to take lessons because I haven't skied in like.
Remember pizza, French fries.
Yeah,
that is.
Pizza if you want to stop.
I French fried when I should have pizzaed.
I will not be skiing this week or next weekend, but we'll be there. Yeah, my whole company's going to be there that whole weekend, and I'm getting there a few days early myself because I'm checking out local hiking trails because I know people will ask me where they should go hiking. A lot of the trails are right outside of town, so there'd be a short drive to the trailhead. We hiked a couple of them already, but there's a couple more I want to check out. And again, similar to the skiing, those are hikes that you could be in and out in 2.5 hours and still do other things with your day. It's not like, when I used to live in Seattle, driving out to Mount Rainier was like 2 hours or 2.5 hours each way. And you'd spend more time in the car than you would on the hike sometimes, which isn't great. Bend is not like that, and all other activities kind of flow into that as well. It's a lot to do, and also even downtown Bend is easy to navigate and walk. It's a few square blocks total.
Yeah, so the downtown areas.
Yeah, it's not like that big city presence, and that's what we want to capture. Not the same feeling you would get at a large conference, but also not the feeling you'd have in, Manhattan or New York City. We're going kind of the opposite. So
with that being said, do you guys have a place you have in mind for next year's conference on the East Coast?
Besides, I have a rule to not think about it until this one is over.
We're not get ahead of yourselves, people.
Fair enough.
Yeah, in theory, we're alternating East Coast, West Coast. So next year, in theory, would be an East Coast city, but that is subject to change. Yeah.
I can think of a couple cool ones that might be cool. Not a lot of people, the Carolinas or Hilton Head or something pretty cool.
We were just in Hilton Head. Actually.
We were just in Hilton Head. Yeah, we've scouted some locations in the Carolinas and the southeastern United States. But I'd have to go back and evaluate kind of every single thing that we would need.
What's crazy? A lot of people don't say Atlanta, Georgia for some reason. I was talking with Lisa who commented on the show. Not a lot of people say Atlanta, even though the airport sucks and it's really tough to get out in and out. It's very busy.
It's the busiest airport in the world. So
busy because there's a lot of people that come and go. I mean, it's a very big international airport, but not a lot of people have like conferences in Atlanta, which is
they do a lot of buyer conferences there though. Like America's Mart is there, and that's huge.
Correct, and that's what the one we attended when I was at our wholesaler. It was a huge, just conference and floors and floors of products.
It all just looks the same to me after all.
It is
right.
It's almost like it's like the Canton Fair, or just
right. Like you have to go in with a game plan, otherwise you're like,
who do I go see and what do I? It's you can get lost. Guys, I appreciate the time for respect of it. I know, Chris, we've linked out to your profiles before, but to go to the conference or to sign up for it, they just go to sellervelocity.com.
Sellervelocityconference.com.
Seller Velocity Conference. Look, it's right there. It's right there in her name. I should have just cheated off of that. I was looking on both screens and I psyched myself out. So sellervelocityconference.com. So buy the tickets, let them know, or connect with you guys on social media as well and ask questions. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not recording this year. So previously we'd had virtual tickets, but this year we've made the decision
all in person.
So
gotcha. Yeah. So if they also for business reasons, is there anything specific that you guys are really focused on this year, or like 2022 is the year of we're going to focus and grow in this area? Anything particular for e-commerce, Chris?
We've had so much growth in the last couple of years. I think this year we're just focusing on kind of catching up to the growth so we don't all lose our minds.
solidifying, just like any responsible brand on Amazon, we're solidifying our processes and our methodology, because we've been approached by so many more brands that need help with Amazon in particular over the last year and a half. So the increase
growth for you guys is coming.
Yeah, I would say it started with the increase in buying on Amazon during COVID.
Yeah.
The more people sold, the more they wanted to sell, or the more listings that they put up, the more problems that they had potentially. It just makes sense. Anytime you're selling more, logically more can go wrong. So we were approached by more people to troubleshoot issues. And, like the rest of the world, we didn't necessarily anticipate a global pandemic. So the spike in interest in our services, caught us a little bit off guard, just the way it did other businesses. But we've had a couple of years to catch up, and it's just kind of, nailing that down and solidifying how we handle the influx of interest. It's a good problem to have, I suppose.
We added to our team, so we're working on, consolidating all that growth and
the
getting
SOP
all of our
side.
team members up to speed, so they're confident in what they're doing.
I love that. Well, you guys are always doing a great job. So from what I can see, continue the good work, and everyone out there who's listening, and you haven't bought your ticket and you're really deciding between it, make sure you buy those before they
join
go.
us.
Yeah, join them in person. So Leah, Chris, thank you so much for always hopping on. Again, Lee for the first time, which is weird to me. I just need to get you on. I swear you've been on at least like 3 times, but I feel like we have this conversation, us 3, every so often, so which is fun to have. I always
just haven't recorded it before.
No, you don't want to hear that. You don't want that conversation recorded. So I appreciate you guys hopping on today, and best of luck at the conference. If I don't see you or talk to you guys before then, otherwise we'll have you on again in the future. So thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.
No problem. Again, thank you everyone else for tuning in. Crossover Commerce. Obviously, thank you, Vincenzo. Great content as always and interesting. Thanks, Ivan, for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into episode 236 of Crossover Commerce. Again, great information out there. This podcast is about uplifting and pointing people in the right direction for information and education in that capacity. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, or follow us on our podcast destinations. You know where those exist. So you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, all subscriptions based that you can just get notified when future episodes come out. If you're in a hurry or you just like listening to everything, you don't want to watch it, you can listen to all of our content and get the show notes version of everything as well at usa.pingpongx.com/podcast. I'm Ryan Kramer. Thanks again for tuning into Crossover Commerce. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. We have another great episode before we round out the week with our friends over at Carbon 6. We're going to be going through Pixel Me with our friend Clayton over there. If you don't know who Carbon 6 is, they're a sponsor of the Seller Velocity Conference. So we will talk about that, but then also a new company that you definitely want to be aware of. I'm Ryan Kramer. This is Crossover Commerce. We'll catch you guys next time. Take care.